Our episode begins with Jill and Hades, where Hades informs them that he cannot allow himself to be betrayed by people pretending to be his allies. Richard then asks him, "Is it true that your magic has been sealed?" Hades replies, "Yes, I am not as strong as I used to be, but let me tell you something, I respect my wife and have no intention of giving up." At that moment, the Dragon King tries to leave, but Jill kicks him hard and tells him he's speaking in an infuriating and shouldn't be acting like that. Hades is furious, but Jill taunts him, saying, "And who else would dare kick you, your majesty? I only ask you to talk things through. Prince Richard searched for you himself because he was deeply worried about you." Richard becomes angry and raises his voice, but Jill silences him, gesturing for him to speak more kindly. She adds, "You're overly cautious of others like an untamed, massive dog." Offended, Richard retorts, "A dog? Couldn't you come up with a better comparison?" Jill assures him not to be upset, as she believes he is a kind-hearted king. Then Richard starts recalling how Jill married Hades. Was she threatened or forced into some strange deal? At that moment, Jill interrupts and tells him, "Your Highness, I married willingly. I wasn't threatened in any way. Protecting and making His Majesty happy is my duty as his wife." Hades is so moved by her heartfelt words that he can't contain his emotions. Jill then turns to Princess Alanzia and Prince Richard, asking for their help. She reminds them that although they are half-siblings, they are still part of the Empire's citizens. She can't imagine they'd let the false emperor do whatever he pleases. They respond coldly, "Don't make such reckless statements. Each of us has our circumstances and roles. Don't say naive things like that." Jill counters Alanzia's remark, saying, "Naive? You're the naive one. If it becomes known that His Majesty is here in neutral, what do you think will happen?" Suddenly, Alanzia launches a swift attack, ordering Zeke and Camellia to capture the others and bind them, warning them not to move or risk losing their heads before help arrives. Jill demands to know if they will ally with His Majesty or the false emperor. At that moment, someone interrupts, informing her of an emergency. Distracted, Jill lowers her guard and Princess Alanzia seizes her. However, the situation quickly shifts, leaving the guards confused. Hades is hidden away before the guard enters to inform them that Emperor Jorg is setting the town ablaze, as reports suggest the false emperor is hiding there. So at this point, the truth is revealed. The massive dragon appears, and Hades declares that he will leave to resolve the issue. Everyone insists on accompanying him. Prince Richard announces he will assist from the northern side, while his sister will confront the fire directly. However, Hades tells them he will extinguish the flames himself, as it is his specialty. He uses Rafi's water-based powers, astonishing the others. They exclaim, "A dragon spraying water. So what kind of power is this? Is this the true strength of the so-called Dragon Emperor?" The following morning, Jill and Hades sit together, but the village is completely destroyed. Prince Richard arrives, informing them that a crimson battle flag with the symbol of a black dragon, the personal emblem of the Emperor's Guard, has been raised. He explains that the area was evacuated quickly, so thankfully, there were no casualties. However, their fields were burned and their homes were destroyed. He adds that his sister is taking steps to rebuild the fortress, while he will join Hades. Hades warns him that his grandfather, Duke Lurzatz, will oppose this decision, but Richard responds, "We are a ducal family, but we are not protecting the Empire. What happened to my elder brother was not your fault, but the bigger problem is the strange rumors I've heard." At that moment, Princess Alanzia enters. Richard tells her, "I'm allying with Hades. My decision is final." She looks at him with joy and hope, having anticipated this declaration. She expresses her desire to follow in his footsteps. She then whispers into Hades' ear that someone wants to meet him, a person residing here, who previously sought her assistance. That person is Ferris, the first princess of Kretos. As a gesture for peace and to achieve stability in the state, she suggests an engagement between Ferris and Hades. Hades laughs and says, "What an amusing joke." The scene transitions to their home, where Jill is furious, unsure of what Hades will do. She wonders if he will sacrifice her. However, Hades reassures her, saying, "I would never sacrifice you. You are my bride, and no one else is worthy of being the dragon's wife." At that moment, Ferris enters and introduces herself. She tells them her older brother once mentioned they were supposed to be engaged, but it seems she fled from him. Jill, surprised, asks if she opposed the engagement, to which Ferris responds, "Not at all. I was looking forward to it. I would have called you Big Sister if you married the Emperor." Hades interrupts, stating firmly, "You will never marry me. You will marry Krytos instead." Ferris counters, explaining that Krytos intends to use her as a vessel. Once she turns 14, she might become a mere puppet, losing her sense of self. She still has 6 years left, during which she wants to untangle the web of fate connecting Krytos and Rafi. Prince Ristyard deduces that Ferris wants to marry Hades to escape her situation. Ferris admits she waited until her brother left the country, knowing he would search for her. Princess Alanzia interjects, pointing out Ferris' youth and fragile health, questioning her readiness for such a commitment. Ferris responds resolutely, declaring her intention to announce her engagement to Emperor Hades immediately. Ristyard interrupts, warning her that if she proceeds, Hades will be branded as an emperor who sold his empire. He stresses that the people of Jaran are just as strong as their land. He also reveals his doubts about their uncle ever permitting Ferris to marry someone in such a fragile state, so their uncle supports Prince Jorg and would withdraw his influence immediately. Alanzia adds that if Hades accepts Ferris' proposal, it would cement an alliance, but she is still too young for a political marriage. Ferris dismisses the notion of love being necessary for the marriage. Hades cuts through their debate, stating he has entertained the discussion long enough and has no desire to hear any more. He picks up Jill, intending to leave, but is stopped by Lawrence. Lawrence informs Hades that the Imperial forces have issued a declaration regarding the fire that ravaged the city. The nobles whose lands were targeted will despair and start searching for answers. The longer they wait, the stronger the enemy grows, and even victory will come with heavy consequences. Hades refuses to agree despite this warning. Jill then urges him to seize the opportunity. She explains that if he does, Princess Alanzia will mobilize her dragon knights, and this is their only chance to minimize losses and overcome the current predicament. She emphasizes they are relying on Princess Ferris, shocking Hades, who accuses Jill of selling him to Ferris. Jill pleads with him not to be angry, stating that all he has to do is reject the engagement. She adds, "Why not give her the freedom to try and win you over?" Lawrence realizes Jill intends to use Ferris' name to bring an end to the conflict. Jill elaborates that she sought Ferris' help to improve relations between their countries and turned to Alanzia for support. This naturally led to the engagement topic, a scenario where, in a perfect story, the Emperor and the Princess might fall in love. But Jill firmly states she will not let Ferris have Hades and will confront her directly. Ferris accepts the challenge, confident that even if surrounded by warships, she can push Krytos' forces to rescue her. Her only difficulty lies in her brother's potential anger if he believes she has been taken hostage. Ferris then requests Lawrence to make the necessary preparations before excusing herself. She asks Jill to take care of Emperor Hades before leaving. Jill calls out to him, telling him that she doesn't want him proposing to Princess Ferris, not even as a rumor. She becomes furious and demands that he listens to her. She forbids him from seeing or speaking to Ferris without a valid reason. Otherwise, she threatens to wrap him in a blanket and hang him outside the window. She then says she has to attend to her work with the Dragon Knights. Hades replies that he has decided to stay with her even after she turns 14 and promises never to betray her. He asks her to return safely so he can prepare garlic butter chicken slices for dinner, with baked pudding and whipped cream for dessert. Jill feels overjoyed, and as she rushes to her work, she reflects on his words, feeling happy that he will always stay by her side. The scene shifts to Hades in the kitchen preparing dinner. Rafael comments sarcastically that after everything, Hades himself is the one cooking. He asks about Hades' relationship with his half-siblings. Hades explains that they have promised to conceal his identity, allowing him to work safely in the Dragon Knight's barracks. A chef asks Hades what to do next in the cooking process, and Hades instructs him to start frying. Ristyard enters and teases Hades, saying, "What kind of emperor acts as the head chef for his Dragon Knights?" After tasting Hades' food, Ristyard is impressed and says, "I didn't know you were this passionate about cooking." Hades responds, "If all I did was sit around, Jill would begin to suspect I'm betraying her. By working here, she won't doubt my loyalty." Princess Alanzia enters, announcing that the Rafael imperial family has gathered in the kitchen to discuss important matters. She shares good news. They've made contact with Wiesel, who is very concerned for Hades. She also assures them that Ristyard's younger sister is safe and that the entire imperial family is secure. All that remains is to prepare in secret and settle matters. Alanzia adds that Wiesel's support is guaranteed. Ristyard expresses concern, saying, "Wiesel is engaged to our cousin's daughter. I'm worried about relying on him, especially with our army's mobilization imminent. The scene shifts to Jill, who is speaking with Lawrence. He remarks that she's been working hard and asks about Zeke. Jill explains that Zeke is training as a squire for the Dragon Knights. Lawrence then asks if there's something Jill wants to tell him. She responds that they have successfully made contact with Crown Prince Vazel, who plans to reveal the location of the Emperor and Princess and demand Princess Jorg's surrender once the soldiers are assembled. Jill warns that if Prince Vazel betrays them, everything will vanish like foam on the sea. She adds, "I've heard the Emperor and his elder brother are in complete agreement. I am an ally of His Majesty above all else." Lawrence speculates, "You seem to already anticipate such betrayals, which is why I'm curious." Jill retorts, "You came to work under my command, so I'll inform you of everything. But if you act against His Majesty, that's a different story." Lawrence becomes upset when he learns that these are men's undergarments, accusing her of bullying him. He insists that the Emperor must be informed. Jill warns, if His Majesty finds out, it will cause a major ordeal. Lawrence angrily declares, anyone who angers the Emperor will face consequences, but that's what should happen. Jill worries aloud, saying, if His Majesty learns I'm being bullied, it might upset him so much that he'll cry. He might make a rash decision to rule through fear. Whatever the outcome, you'll see how hard it will be to calm him down. Lawrence suggests, I'll get help from Mr. Zeke. Whoever did this to you needs a lesson. Later, Jill returns home and finds Hades crying. She asks what's wrong, and he responds, they said a young man from the Dragon Knights helped you a man you're dating. So I thought I shouldn't worry you, so I became the head chef. But you've been cheating on me? I don't want to hear any excuses. Hades storms off to his room. Zeke remarks, this is turning into a massacre between a child and a teenager. Jill scolds them, stop such things and help me calm him down. Camilla advises, complicating things will only make it harder for you. Jill approaches Hades and explains, there's nothing between Lawrence and me. If His Majesty were being bullied and a woman helped him handle it, you'd wrap me in a blanket and hang me from the window. If you did that to me, I'd swing you in return. She thinks to herself, if His Majesty is bullied and forced to wash women's clothes, killing would be the only option. Hades, visibly calmer, replies, honestly, I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry, scare me more than ever. I'm sorry for acting like a child. He later apologizes to Jill, saying, it could never be dull as long as rumors spread that you're dating someone else. Jill apologizes and suggests, can we start over from the moment you cried about me cheating? I don't mind pampering you, but only in moderation. Hades smiles and says, there's no guarantee your opponent will act according to your plans. The reason your plans changed was because you knew you'd lose if you didn't adapt. I want to hear the whole story from you. Jill concludes, if I tell you, you must behave properly. The truth, some of the Dragon Knights are bullying me. When that happens, killing is the only option. And that wraps up today's episode of this anime. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated.